welcome to Mark Stay's Creative Differences, a monthly live stream and podcast where I talk to writer friends about the little things that make a big difference to their craft and careers, in the hope that we can give readers some insight to the creative process and writers and other creative folk some practical advice that they can actually use. I'm Mark Stay, author, screenwriter and podcaster, and if you're joining us live, feel free to ask us questions in the comments and take part in the conversation. A big thank you as always to Dom Currie for his jingle. Now today we've got what I'm calling the mid-list blues. Let's just play that again, shall we? My special guest today writes gripping thrillers that delve into the darkest corners of family, psychology, and forensic investigation. Her books explore secrets, lies, and the dangerous choices people make when pushed to the edge. And as a child, she crafted stories using cutouts from her mum's Littlewoods catalogues. She also runs one of the best writers group on Facebook and is a brilliant advocate for authors. It's only Tracy Buchanan. Hello, Tracy.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. Yeah, I'm really good. Just got back from Gran Canaria. So yeah, I'm feeling, well, not just a few days ago. So yeah.
But it's very nice. The sand dunes, very evocative. Are you inspired by the landscape out there?
I am actually, yeah. A new idea started coming to me. So yeah, watch this space. I think, yeah, I did definitely come up with a little idea. So I've been talking to my agent about it. So yeah.
Excellent. That makes the holiday tax deductible, I believe. Is that? I'm not an accountant, but yeah, it might. Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Well, look, let's start with the really important thing, which is the Littlewoods catalogues.
My mum loved her Littlewood catalogues. I was that little girl who was just looking for character inspiration, cutting out those character things and putting them in little scrapbooks and deciding what sort of characters I would put into my novels. So yeah.
So when did you first start writing? You were very young when you first started writing.
I always wanted to be a writer. I always carried around a little notepad and always coming up with stories and telling stories to people. So yeah, it was just something that's always been, everyone I know, all my family always said that's what I wanted to do. But just love and quite always enjoyed the dark stuff. My daughter's like that now. So yeah, it's always been the slightly darker, like vampires and, death. Little 6-year-old sitting there thinking about vampires and death as you do. What the hell?
Yeah, it's perfectly healthy, isn't it, Emmy? It describes our childhoods, definitely. And what sort of set you on the path to writing? Was there an encouraging teacher? Was there someone who gave you inspiration or showed you the way?
I think I would definitely say my mum. She's sadly not here anymore, but she was an avid reader, and all I saw was her reading all the time. So I think really being introduced to that world of books and seeing how important reading is and how exciting it is really inspired me. So really, I always say it's my mum. She was just like, she gave me my love of words. There's no doubt about it. And, had some great teachers as well. But yeah, it's always been my mum.
Was she around to see you get published?
Yes, she was. So she passed away sadly in 2021. So during COVID, she was diagnosed and stuff. So yeah, it was great. She came, I was first published 10 years ago. She was the first person I called when I got my deal with HarperCollins, and she came with me to Waterstones, and did all the whole thing. I used to drag her around to lots of things like photo shoots. I did a photo shoot once. And yeah, she's been there. So I'm so delighted and pleased and feel so blessed that she got to see that. So that's really great. And I told her about this series that I've just had published, the Vanessa Marwood series, just before she passed away, and she loved the sound of it. So yeah.
The new book, Moth to the Flames, which I believe is the third Dr. Vanessa Marwood thriller. Now, Dr. Marwood is a forensic entomologist. Now, as if crime thrillers weren't scary enough, you have to go and add creepy crawlies. So tell us about Dr. Vanessa Marwood and the new book and how it all fits in.
Love a bit of death, love a bit of darkness, and I also love insects and lots of different creatures. I've got like hedgehog places in my front garden and foxes everywhere, so it's a really big thing for me as well. So I thought, what? Let's combine a bit of death and darkness with insects. Why not?
Is it true that you were growing maggots yourself?
Thing is, well, I interviewed a forensic entomologist, one of the leading forensic entomologists in the country anyway, for the book. And she said to me, the best way to really understand it is to grow your own maggots. And I wasn't seriously thinking about it, but then it was summer and we'd let the rubbish pile up a little bit. And I saw a few maggots. So I just took them out. I took them out carefully and put them in like an aerated box to grow them and see what happened. But then it rained and they didn't last. So yes, that wasn't a very successful experience. And my forensic entomologist expert who helped me with the books wasn't very impressed by the scientific kind of background that I used. Yeah, so she wasn't impressed by that. But, I tried.
When you were talking to your forensic entomologist, do you do the research beforehand? Do you do it during, or do you do it after, or a little bit all the way through?
So I did, just to get the plot down, I did lots of the research online because I feel that the plot comes first because it's fiction. And and I think it's really important to get the facts right as much as you can. But in my view, a good story is about plot and you need to drive the plot forward. So I did that to make sure that I was happy with the story. And then once I'd done the first draft, I sat down and spoke to a forensic entomologist. I just emailed Amaret. And she was wonderful. And she was able to tell me all the places I got it wrong, literally all the places I got it wrong. And we worked together. And she's very cool. She understood that it was more me saying, could this happen? Doesn't mean, it's like, 1 in a million shot, could it happen? It's like, yes, in theory it could. So, okay, great, I'll put it in. So yeah, that was really, I found I would advise that people do that, kind of almost getting the plot down and do it how you want to do it and then come back and make sure you get some of the facts right.
The entomologist thing, is that the strangest research you've done for any of your books, or have, because we'll bring up the backlist here, you've got the other series here as well, and you've got some standalones too. I mean, do all of your books take you to dark and strange places in terms of research?
Yeah, I think a lot of my other books, so a lot of those there are the psychological suspense books, whereas the Vanessa Marwood is much more crime thriller, much more steeped in forensics and things like that. My previous books are much more about the emotions, the emotional side. So I guess research-wise is the research I did was digging deep into my emotions. So really taking account and understanding what's happening in my mind when, like with grief or infertility. But I definitely think the Vanessa Marwood stuff is the strangest research that I've had to do.
I was at a Comic-Con over the weekend and I was talking to a guy. I was dressed up in a Home Guard uniform because it was a steampunk thing and other people were dressed up. And this was a Home Guard uniform ordered off Amazon. It was just off the peg kind of thing. And he said, "Oh, I don't want to tell you about all the errors with your uniform." And he said, "The buttons, the blah, blah." I said, "Mate, I got it online. I'm just here for the dressing up." I said, but for the book, the historical detail is all important. I remember when I worked for Headline, we used to sell what they used to call saga novels, clogs and chores, where they were sort of generally romance stories set usually in a very specific town at a very specific time, the 20s or 30s or whatever. And I got all the free samples as a rep. I would give them to a friend of mine, Doreen, and she circulated them around her friends, and they loved them. And I said to her, "What is it about these books that you love?" And she said, "It's the little things. It's the things like knowing that bus stopped at Clapham Junction, and we used to get that bus. So it's that little day-to-day minutiae that makes all the difference for readers. So yeah, if you can get that, and particularly with bugs and insects, all of that stuff is absolutely fascinating. So if you feel the author has got a grip on it, then you just trust them and you go with it. And I think it's so that grounding of research is all important, isn't it?
For me, the plot is essential, but that's why I went to a forensic entomologist. Like, I could not have written this book without going to an expert, because she also passed it. It was reviewed in Entomology Today and things like that. She passed it around. So for her, it was important as well. So yeah, as much as it bugged me that sometimes she was saying things like this, you can't include this. But yeah, it's like being able to, it is a fine line. You're walking a fine line as an author between entertaining people, but also making sure you don't get things wrong.
Now, you run a Facebook group called the Savvy Authors Snug, which is known generally just as the Savvies. Can you tell us about Savvies and how it all started?
So I went to a few parties. Oh God, this was back in the day when there were more parties in publishing, I feel like 5 or 6 years ago. Everyone's too skint now. But I went to a few parties, like an agent party and a publisher party, and they were all in the same couple of days over a few glasses of wine. I was talking to fellow authors, and we were all sort of saying there's loads of stuff out there for aspiring authors, but there wasn't much out there for published authors or sort of established self-published authors who've had a few books out to talk about the kind of issues that are very distinct, because people think once you get published the angst stops, but it doesn't.
No.
It's a roller coaster. Oh God, no.
We've only just begun.
I know, exactly. God. So I set it up the next day with a bit of a hangover. I'm very careful about who I let in. I only let in about, I've got a figure, I did figure it out at some point, with about half the people who apply, because I get so many people applying. And it's lovely when people apply and they're not published, but then I say, sorry, you can't come in. But then 6 months later, they're like, I got a deal. So I'm like, yeah, come in. So yeah, it's just a really lovely place where we can all have a nice chat and moan a lot. There's a lot of moaning because that's life. People prefer to have a moan, don't they? But I really try and celebrate the good stuff as well.
There are evergreen topics that come up, but again, these things are constantly changing and constantly shifting. And I mean, what changes have you seen in those 5 years? What are we talking about more now that we weren't then?
I think, well, it's tougher. I think there was a nice boom in the mid-teens, like the 2015, 16.
Yeah.
I had some books that did really well then, and a lot of authors, it was kind of like riding the wave of the Kindle deals and Kindle getting very popular. So there's definitely a sense of, for established or mid-list authors and the people who've had quite a few books out, where before the royalties were allowing you to almost do it full time, it's not so easy now as it was. Deals aren't coming as quickly for a lot of authors. Like, surprisingly, some authors who are fantastic, seem to be very successful and not getting new deals with their publishers. Dare I say it? The big one is AI as well. That's a big one that's coming up as well. So, and I try and sort of encourage authors to try not to give in to that fear and those negative emotions around AI. That's how I'm trying to handle it. I always try and be really positive and like, oh, okay, let's look into it. Let's see how we can, I'm sure it won't be bad. So, I'm always trying to do that in the group as well, try and offer a bit more of a less panicky voice. Those are the two main things. And in a way, they're connected because of that fear of things being taken away. So yeah, there's some really, that they definitely, that's the change for me, is the stability is not there. Because I always said it's a myth, because people say you can't give up your day job to be a writer, but I always said you can, and you can earn a really good amount of money through writing. But I think it's a lot harder now. It's a lot harder than what it was.
It feels to me very similar to what we went through with CGI in the 90s and films. I'd sort of model maker friends who were like, oh, that's it, my career is over. And what they discovered was that a lot of CGI was rubbish and it was rushed and badly done. And now the two things live side by side. You have model makers where they're using the CGI to do the backgrounds or to cut out the wires or whatever, and these things work hand. And likewise, we've had drum machines since the late 70s, early 80s, but we still hire drummers, because what we yearn as consumers of entertainment is a human connection. And I think, particularly with authors, we get inside the heads of characters. We love the voices of our favorite authors. That is what we're looking for, that voice, and my advice to authors is ignore all the noise, concentrate on developing your own voice, because that's something that we make a connection to. Yes, an AI can knock out a novel, but it doesn't have that voice. It doesn't have the voice that we appreciate.
It's that human, it's the human voice that's so unique. And that sort of ties into why you can't predict how well things are going to go, because it's in terms of books, because there's a certain something that AI can't do, that an author can't plan to do, that will suddenly make something connect. And I think that is just at a human level that you can't explain. It's making me sound, sounds really spiritual, but it's kind of, you cannot predict it, and AI can't do that, I don't think. So, it's that very human side of things, and unpredictable humanity, unpredictable nature of humans, and how we feel and what we love.
I'm just going to bring up a quote from Laura here. She says, "Why can't you use a line or two from a pop song? Surely it comes under fair use." Now, Laura, I did a whole episode of this on the bestseller experiment. We had a couple of entertainment lawyers on, UK entertainment lawyers on. I'll put a link in the show notes so people listening back to the podcast can check it out. Just don't do it. Don't do it. It used to be in the 80s that record labels were kind of a bit casual about this, which is why if you go back and look at Stephen King novels, they're full of lyrics. And Robert Rankin had a load of lyrics in his books as well. And they had a very laissez-faire attitude to it. But as soon as CD sales dropped and their main source of income died, they got very litigious about this stuff. And UK, we don't really have the concept of fair use in the same way they do in the US. And it could be seen as passing off. So don't do it. It would just, if you're caught, print runs get pulped, all sorts of legal shenanigans. It gets very, very difficult. They're very, very strict about it. What I'm seeing more and more, and this, I mean, I've done this myself, which is on Savvy's, I'm seeing more and more authors getting the rights back to some of their earlier books and self-publishing them and going out there. And while it isn't as easy as it might have been, say, 10 years ago, I think there's an element of, well, if my publisher's not going to do anything with these books, I'll do something with them. And we're seeing more and more people shifting over to sort of putting their indie stuff, their early stuff, as selling it independently.
That's what I'm doing. I've been doing as well. I've been trying to do that. So, yeah.
And what's your experience of that been like?
So I know people who've done it really well, but so I got the rights back to my early novels from HarperCollins. They did fight in a lovely way. They fought me for them. So they were really lovely about it. They're like, please let us try. So I did let them try, but I still didn't feel like the money that was being made every month was worth it. So I've got the rights back, and I've got the rights back from the American rights as well. So I was going to self-publish and do all of that, but I realized that I just found it quite exhausting because I've got a part-time job as well and a child and family, found it quite exhausting, and money-wise, it was taking up a lot of money. So I think before anyone does that, they have to be really sure that they've got the time and the money to do it, because you are still, if you want to rebrand, you want to rebrand, you want to get a new cover. I mean, you can design your own cover if you're decent at doing that kind of thing, but you've got to be careful. So there's so much involved in self-publishing. So that's what I would say to anyone who's looking to do that, is to really make sure you've got the time and money.
Let's get on to our regular questions that I ask each of our guests.
What small thing has made a big difference to your creative process?
Oh, having a dog in my office. No, sorry, I'm just trying to say it. A small thing is walks. I know that sounds really going out for walks. When I get stuck on something or trying to come up with ideas, and that's when my dog assistant is snoring at the moment comes in. So that is a small thing for me, because if I'm sat there, I'm like, I cannot figure out this plot hole. If I go out into nature, walk around, it untangles. So I'd always recommend that to anyone going out for walks.
What's the thing that makes you think you're ready to start writing on a project?
It's when I cannot stop writing it and thinking about it in the evenings. So now that I'm busy, well, I've got a child and I'm just exhausted. I'm older and I just get so tired in the evenings. Back in the day, in my early days of writing, I would write into the evenings, without thinking about it. But now I'm just tired at the end of the day. So I'm like, no, stop. But if I carry on writing into the evening till late at night, I know that the idea's got legs and I'm excited about it.
And how do you know when you're done?
When it comes to like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I decide to when I decide to clean the house instead of writing, I know that I need to take a break, because that's really unusual for me to want to tidy and clean the house, as my husband will agree. So yeah, but it's also regards to perfecting stuff. I could perfect a book for 10 years. I could keep looking at it. So there comes deadlines really help with that. So, but yeah, that for me, I know when it's time to stop, when I'm coming up with an excuse not to write, really.
How do you remember that idea that you have at 3 a.m?
Oh, I don't have a notepad by my bed. What I worry about is I do remember stuff, and then I forget it. But I do wake up with ideas in my head. So that's the only way, is I sort of think about, when I wake up, I think about it, but I don't have a notepad by my bed. I don't tend to dream as many ideas or think of ideas in the middle of the night.
But you just keep it up there in your noggin until the morning.
Yeah, I just wake up. I just seem to remember it. I don't know how. Or maybe that's the problem. Maybe I don't remember as many as what I should because I don't write it down. And now you're making me think I've got to go and get a notepad, and I really, really need to write all these ideas down.
What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your writing career?
I think not being consistent and maybe pivoting too much sometimes. So because I'm savvy, I'm very aware of being careful with what publishers I'm with. I've learned that publishers are pretty much the same. A lot of publishers are the same. As in they're great. A lot of publishers are great, and at the end of the day, you're the one who's in control. So they are helping you in a way. They're almost like a freelancer for you. So staying with publishers, I think it's important to have that consistency. So I probably have, when I've been offered opportunities, jumped around a little bit too much. So, so I think that's something. I wouldn't say it's the biggest mistake I've made, but just being a bit more consistent.
What's the best happy accident of your writing career?
Do you know what? I think it is getting drunk and talking about all my issues at those parties, because a lot of the time people don't talk about it. So and then Savvy Writers Snug came blossomed out of that. So I think that is, I'd say that really.
Is there a character or a story swirling around in your mind that you want to write, but you're not ready to write it yet?
Yes, I think I do like quite literary, slow ideas, like romances. So almost like a Wuthering Heights, brooding man, but not in the commercial romantic way. So my savvy commercial side is telling me it won't work, and it won't sell, and it won't do well. And I really am into. There's always romances in my book anyway, and I'm writing a very commercial romance at the moment. But it's the more literary, quiet, slow burn romance. And I just know that writing it, I probably would enjoy it, but I don't know if anything would come of it.
When writing crime fiction and coming up with gruesome plots, how do you boundary yourself, or are there certain topics you would never touch? Well, there's a good one. I
do struggle. I don't like to write about abuse, but generally everything else I kind of, I'm pretty open to writing about, and I don't feel an obligation to be overly careful, because I feel that people should know when they're diving into dark books that there's going to be darkness in there.
Where do you stand on the issue of trigger warnings?
It depends on the genre, actually. So if you're expecting something to be dark, you've got to prepare yourself that something might come up. It is tough, I guess. Like if you go watch a film and a topic that's you're really sensitive to comes up, it can be really tough. But I think that you have to be aware going in that might happen. It is a fine line between how many trigger warnings you put in. But I do think if you've got more of a soft, like a lighter book maybe, but I'm not. I think we've survived without them for long enough to be okay without them.
I think, like you say, I think it's a kind of horses for courses thing. I think if it's like children's fiction or whatever, maybe, I think when you see a cover that has, these are crime covers, and we're going to be dealing with murder and death and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a contract there between the reader and the author that bad things are going to happen, that terror and anything goes kind of thing. So I think that's whereas if you're writing maybe a fluffy romance and there is something deeply traumatic in the middle of it that's unexpected, then maybe you need to rethink your story. Like I say, that I think that contract between reader and author is much more open and much more clear. I think. Do you think you've inspired your daughter to write, and has she read any of your books?
Yeah, she is she wants to be an actress, so she would like to star. So I have had interest. I've had the film rights, TV rights sold to a couple of books. So she's always like, I need to be an actress in one of them. But she does love writing as well. So I think so. She hasn't read any of my books because they would not be appropriate for You've probably had a sneaky look. I've read a couple of things from the prologue of some books to give her an insight into how I start my books. But when she's older, I say she can read them when she's older. She knows all about them, to be honest. So she does. I tell her, about stuff. But yeah, I think I have. Hopefully, I have inspired her to be creative.
Well, I've tried to put both of my kids off, and but I mean, you're writing, aren't you? And George, he's graduated now, so we have a fully qualified unemployed actor in the house. But he's writing his own stuff as well. So it's like I've tried to put you off, but you wouldn't listen, would you? You briefly mentioned you're working on something new at the moment. How much can you tell us about that?
Well, at the moment, I'm writing a quite commercial romance that that I'm really enjoying. It's really fun, and that we're going to be approaching publishers under a pseudonym, Wombat. So, right. And then psychological suspense, that idea that I had when I was away. I'm working on that as well. I will do another Vanessa Marwood, I think, but because it's so intense, the plotting and the research. I just need a little break because I had 3 of these out within a year. So it's quite intense. I'm taking a little bit of a break from that. But I'm playing at the moment and, sort of writing some drafts and messing about. And it's quite a nice phase.
What's bringing you joy at the moment? This can be books, movies, TV shows, music, games, whatever makes you happy when you're not writing.
So I am a gamer. I love gaming. I actually rediscovered it over lockdown because I got a Nintendo Switch so that I could do the workout things, but it just made me sit on my butt all day instead. I didn't do any working out because I discovered games. So that was completely silly of me. But I love games. I've been playing a game called Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is set in medieval times. So it's notoriously a really tough game. It's lots of fighting, and I love open world. I love exploring worlds in games and having little quests and stuff. And people are always really shocked when I tell them that I'm into gaming. But it's writing used to be my hobby, but now it's my job. Still, passionate job. But so it's kind of the gaming side has become the hobby. I'll be treating myself if I get this book that I'm currently writing in by deadline. I think I'm going to get myself the next Assassin's Creed. So really, that's getting some really great reviews. So I love kind of, doing a bit of sort of cheeky killing. The storytelling and gaming is amazing, and I think that can really help. With that side of things.
George, my son, is nearly 23 now, but he was into Red Dead Redemption 2, and he learned about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he was telling me about the horse, and he was really choked up about this horse. But he also learned how to play poker. What else is bringing you joy, Tracy?
I love watching films. Actually, I love films and TV, and I just watched. Oh God, I forgot the name of it. The one about the Pope, Conclave. So. Especially because of bless him, the Pope.
Yeah, quite topical.
The Pope, very topical, and I love watching topical things. So when lockdown happened, I watched Contagion. But Conclave, really good twist at the end. And actually, my family are kind of Roman Catholic, so on both sides, my mum and dad's side, I've got that kind of Roman Catholic heritage. I watched that sort of this weekend, and then. So really bizarre. It sort of all happened at the same time. Like Lana Del Rey. I love that. I love her kind of moody, depressing kind of sound. I seem to like female vocalists who sound very depressed or very intense when they're singing. And actually, one of my characters in My Sister's Secret, one of the characters is based on Lana Del Rey, the way she looks and the way she acts. And that was a few years ago when Lana Del Rey was first starting out. So I love listening to music. And books, I'll have to remember what the name of this is now. But I'm going through a non-fiction phase. So Careless People. So that's all. It's a woman, a New Zealand woman who worked at Facebook, and it's the inside story on Facebook. It's kind of terrifying, really, because it's everything you think it will be, which is horrible, basically greedy, childish. So I'm finding that quite interesting, and. I'm also reading Supremacy by So Supremacy, it's about how ChatGPT and so on came about, so the lead up to it, and how AI kind of evolved over the past few years. And that involves people like Facebook and Google and Microsoft, all these massive conglomerates, that are just desperate to play a part in this new technology. And it's a really fascinating read.
Brilliant. I'll quickly run through what's giving me joy this month. Now, we were talking about the storytelling in gaming.
Yes.
I mean, we got The Last of Us. I had a long Easter weekend. I was working over the Easter weekend. So last night I thought I'd treat myself to episode 2 of the new season. What? It's only episode 2. What could possibly go wrong? Oh my God, that was the sort of thing you'd expect in a season finale. It was just absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. The other thing that's given me joy, now I haven't seen it yet, but just the sweet anticipation of Andor Series 2 as it's just bringing my step. I just can't wait to see this. This is, for my money, the best Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back. I'm very, very excited. And sort of in anticipation of that, one of the books I've been reading is by Tony Gilroy's dad, Frank D. Gilroy, who is the father of Tony Gilroy. He was a Pulitzer prize-winning playwright, and this is his sort of memoir, Writing for Love and/or Money. Mind blown. And/or Money. And it starts in 1939 when he's a kid, goes to war, ends in 1960. He has encounters with people like Jimmy Cagney, which is great. Even through the 50s and 60s, those constants of being a writer, money worries, rejection, perseverance, they're all still there. So it was kind of reassuring that even someone who won a Pulitzer Prize and had plays on Broadway and wrote movies and TV shows and everything had exactly the same worries that I'm going through as well, and every writer I know is going through. Highly recommend that. In terms of music, I love Lana Del Rey. I've got her new single as well, which is just terrific. But there's a song by Samantha Fish, who's this fantastic guitarist, called Sweet Southern Sounds. It starts as this soulful blues, and the solo speeds up in tempo until by the end she's thrashing away. And now a lot of bands in the 70s used to do this by mistake. You listen to some old records and the tempo picks up by the end. She's doing it deliberately. I think the lesson for writers here is break the rules, but do it with intent. Now, we were mentioning Comic-Cons earlier. In the last month, I've been to Luton, Maidenhead. Over the Easter weekend, I was in the Fort Amherst Caves in Chatham. I've sold lots of books, met loads of new readers, so I'm going to be doing a lot more. So here are some dates for your diary. Sunday, 4th of May, I'm going to be in Maidstone. Sunday, 11th of May, I'm going to be in Reading. 18th of May, Sunday, 18th of May, I'm going to be in Tunbridge. Then, end of May, 23rd to the 25th, the big one, the MCM Comic-Con in London. I'm going to be there all weekend. And then Sunday, 31st, I'm going to be in Hatfield. In between all that, in the middle of all that, I'm going to be appearing at the Beyond the Book Festival in Brighton, which has a fantastic lineup, including Dorothy Coomson, Ellie Griffiths, Ruth Ware, and there's little old me in the bottom left-hand corner there. I'll be moderating a panel discussing world building, Rise of the World Builders, with Natasha Pulley, Adam Simcox, and Zuleika Afzal. It's going to be a really, really good day out for everyone. So get your tickets. I'm going to put links in the show notes if you're listening back to this as well. Also, the Green Room, twice a month, I run live sessions on Zoom where you can ask me questions about the craft of writing, the work in progress, the business of publishing. Sessions are fun and informal and chatty. This Thursday, we've got one of our 200-word workshops where members send me in 200 words of their work in progress. I give it a critique, and it promises to be really, really good fun. It's all on Ko-fi, so it's £20 a month. You can stay for a month or however long you want. So do come along to that. There's no long-term commitment. Now, The Corn Bride came out a couple of months ago, thanks to everyone who's read it and reviewed it. Now, I didn't have a launch party for it or any kind of launch event. So what I thought I was going to do, launch parties, you can't really discuss much of the plot. So I'm going to have a spoiler night. So on Tuesday, 13th of May, which is 2 months after publication, I'm going to have a spoiler night where you can join me. If you've got thoughts about the ending, the middle, the beginning, anything to do with the whole series, then join me on Tuesday, 13th of May, 8 p.m. British Summer Time, and I will answer all of your questions, including Witches of Woodville books.
Next month's special guest is Sarah Pinborough. Join us on Monday, the 12th of May, 8 p.m. British Summer Time. Now, Sarah is an award-winning and New York Times and Sunday Times and internationally best-selling author and screenwriter, published in over 30 territories worldwide, published over 25 novels over various genres. Recent books include Behind Her Eyes, which was a smash hit Netflix series, 30 Minutes that she's developing with Carnival and NBC, and The Death House that she's adapted herself for compelling pictures, and of course her most recent book, Insomnia, which she adapted herself, as streaming on Paramount Plus. She's hilarious, she's wise, and has a lovely dog called Ted. So do please join us live, as you will have the opportunity to ask Sarah questions on the night and just before a big American tour as well. It's going to be so much fun. Monday 12th of May, 8 p.m. BST.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy. I really, really appreciate your time. And folks, I'll put links and everything in the show notes so you can check out. I mean, the books are available from all good booksellers and they are absolutely terrific. If you've enjoyed this podcast, things like ratings, reviews, likes, shares, these all help massively with those AI algorithms. But more importantly, if you could tell just one person about this podcast, that will make the biggest difference. Word of mouth is the best marketing there is. So until next time, happy writing, reading, and being different. And see you next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.
See you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.